Beautiful Montreal, America's northern neighbor with a European feel. A wonderful place to spend a nice summer weekend strolling the historic sites, snacking at the cafes, or watching some NASCAR racing. On Ile Notre Dame, just across the St. Lawrence River from downtown Montreal, sits Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where the NASCAR Nationwide Series goes racing for a fourth time, a 200-miler Sunday on this very tough 14-mile road course. The last 2 years, weather has made this tough track even tougher. Driving in wet conditions, something pretty foreign to NASCAR drivers, even those road course ringers. Driving in the wet in these stock cars, a very difficult test. That hasn't taken away from the hard-nosed, fender-crunching, give no quarters racing we've seen, the late twists of plot in these races that have seen the dominant driver all 3 years lose out in the end, and a surprise take the trophy home at the end of the afternoon. And alongside the pit straight at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is our ESPN broadcast booth, where we are thrilled to be with you and getting ready to call final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Alan Bestwick, Rusty Wallace, Andy Petrie, welcome to Montreal. Drivers have been on the track for 2 hours earlier today. Now their final runs on this racetrack. Rusty, from the driver's perspective, what are they looking to accomplish?
Well, they're trying to put it all together. I watched drivers this morning off the course, wheel hopping, sliding around, spinning out, all kind of things going on, and they're trying to get their cars handling the best they possibly can. Now, I talked to a lot of drivers that are very concerned about the brakes, so they're going to be trying to figure out how fast can they go and still manage those brakes.
All right, so handling brakes, that sounds like the crew chief's department. What are the crew chiefs going to be looking to accomplish now?
Well, this is road course racing is hard on equipment, and this is a very difficult course. You can see all the sparks flying. When they fly over the curbs, you want to make sure you don't bend a lot of parts. The brakes, though, are the biggest thing. They want to make sure that they've got enough brake to finish this race, and they can get that car stopped and let him go fast. But the other thing is this is the last practice before qualifying, so you want to make sure that you got your car fast. And then which lap is it? It's going to be your first lap, second lap, because we do that group qualifying, and you don't really know when that fast lap's going to come, so you got to find out right here.
That qualifying later today at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Now, some headlines that we'll be following throughout today and tomorrow. Robbie Gordon back in Montreal looking for a little revenge. Marcus Ambrose looking for redemption on this track. And Jacques Villeneuve, the hometown driver, looking for some heroics on the track named for his father. For more on those stories, we head down to the pit and garage areas, starting with Shannon Spake.
Well, Alan, the last time we saw Robbie Gordon in a car here at Montreal, back in 2007, he was doing burnouts, actually in this very car, celebrating his victory. Now, while the record books will tell you that Kevin Harvick actually won that race, don't tell Robbie that. In fact, Robbie has a banner in his shop back at Charlotte. It reads simply, "Winner, Montreal." Now, while that race was 3 years ago and Robbie says he's no longer angry about the controversial finish, that doesn't mean that he does not want to celebrate his victory properly. So you take a little bit of Robbie Gordon, you add in a road course, and then a big chip on the shoulder, and what do you get? A lot of excitement here in Montreal. Mike Massaro?
Shannon, on Friday, Marcus Ambrose described racing as 90% frustration, 10% jubilation. But when it comes to racing here in Montreal, Ambrose has been a little bit shortchanged on that 10%. In 3 tries, he's come close, but so far has not cashed in on a victory. As Ambrose explains it, there are so many ways to lose a race, but only one way to win it. That's to be perfect. To that end, this is the same race car he went to victory lane with just a couple of weeks ago at Watkins Glen. And this team, well, despite it being an off weekend for the Sprint Cup Series, each one of these men are here from the Sprint Cup Series. His first Montreal victory, Vince Welch.
Well, Jacques Villeneuve is good at every road course he races, so it should be no surprise that he's good here this weekend at the circuit named after his father. In fact, you take a good team and you put a really good road course driver in, and you get a guy who's at the very top of the speed charts or near it. And that's what we get from Villeneuve here this weekend. But Jacques says that it is special to be racing at his track named after his father, and he's honored to do so. But when he gets in that car and on this course, he is focused only on hitting his marks at every turn and taking care of his brakes. And speaking of brakes, that's certainly going to be a hot topic of conversation as he tries to win here this weekend. Alan?
All right, Vince, thanks. So as Jacques goes around the track, let's zero in on this layout. 14 corners, 2.7 miles around this racetrack. That's a lot of zigging and zagging there, Rusty.
A lot of zigging and zagging. As you can see, there's a lot of corners. There's going to be a lot of downshifting going on, a lot of hard brake usage. But one thing I do want to point out, it's a long back straightaway from turn 11 all the way down to 13. It's one of the longest in NASCAR. Andy, I think over 180 miles an hour down that back straightaway.
Yeah, then they got to hit those brakes hard, make that right, then the left. That's exactly where Carl Edwards was able to beat Marcus Ambrose to win this race last year.
A little brake smoke boiling there.
I'm telling you, this guy here knows how to go fast, but he does it mostly with brakes. I mean, he really gets the most out of it. He knows this track like the back of his hand, so he knows where to push the car. Now, will the car hold up? We'll see.
That's turn 10, the big, slow right-hander, and turn 11, the little quick jog there. Now, I mentioned that the cars were on the track already for 2 hours from 9 to 11 Eastern Time this morning. There were a couple of interesting moments to watch. Speaking of the 32.
Just a little hot through there.
Little lawn mowing there, and from the 32.
Same guy.
That's over turn 8 and 9.
He's just trying to find the limit here on as far as the grip, the brakes, all of that. Like I said, he knows the racetrack. He just needs to figure out where the limit of the car is.
Anytime you can go around and get off the track twice and not bend any fenders, you're doing okay.
Yeah, if you want to find the limit of the car, this is the guy to do it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you hear us talking about brakes an awful lot in our broadcast here this week, and basically, this is the only time these guys have run this racetrack in the last 2 years where rain hasn't really been involved. So a lot of the drivers I talked to said, Rusty, the brakes are really going to be an issue. They've worked real hard to keep that from happening. But this guy right here, Jacques Villeneuve, he is one of the toughest on the brakes. I talked to Trent Owens, his crew chief. He said, Rusty, our car's handling pretty good, but all we're focusing on right now is getting these brakes to withstand for our driver because he's rough on them.
Well, we know he's fast. If we check out some of the speeds from the first practice session from today, that yellow 32 car will be top of the stack. It was the 20th of his 21 laps that he posted that fast lap. Carl Edwards, on the 15th of his 21 laps, posted the second quickest time. A lot of the usual suspects up there, Ambrose, Keselowski, and Max Papis in Harvick's 33 car. Also very good in practice this morning. Now, what if you got a young driver who doesn't have a lot of road racing experience and you want to maybe pick up a little speed and figure out how to get around this place a little better, figure out where you're losing time? What do? You get out behind somebody with a lot of road course experience. Paul Menard, 98, a lot of road racing in his background, right?
Yep.
Trevor Bayne, 99, none. Except this year.
He's learning. It's a big learning experience for him on these road courses, but he has been getting better and better. I talked to Jerry Baxter, his crew chief. He said if they could just finish in the top 10 here this weekend, it would be a great goal for them. So that's what they're shooting for.
You can have a road race expert go out there and tell you what to do. But it's a lot easier when you follow him and you watch where you're losing time and where he's gaining time. I mean, as a driver, you learn so much faster when you do it that way. I mean, how many times your dad looked you in the eyeball and said, do this, do that, do that, and went one ear right out the other? That's what happens a lot.
I grew up in New England, not all that far from Canada. Coming to Canada was something we did as vacations when I was a kid, right? So I lose perspective on this, but Trevor Bayne says this is the first time he's ever been out of the United States. And you think about that, okay, he's only 19 years old, right? And all right, a little bit of a surprise there, but he's learning a lot this weekend, no matter whether he understands the language or not. Vince, was he giving you some updates in French or English earlier?
You know, he's only 19 years old. I mean, we've got to lower the expectations. I didn't go out of the country until I was much older. So this course, by the way, and the Homestead track that they'll run in the season finale, the only two courses that Trevor Bayne has not run in a race in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. So one of the reasons why his results have been improving, he's starting to come to a place for the second time. They do manage their expectations when they come here, as Jerry Baxter said, and you talked about, hey, if we can get 10th place like we did at Road America, we leave here pleased. This is like a giant test session for this team. They just want to get laps, get seat times, get more comfortable with the road course layouts. And I talked with Trevor a little bit earlier, and he said, I feel like I'm getting better every single run, and that's our goal this weekend. Sometimes it'll show on the stopwatch, sometimes it won't, but I just want to be better at the end of the weekend than I was when I arrived.
And there's a lot to learn about this racetrack. This is not a simple course by any means.
Oh, no, it's a very technical course. It's pretty flat. There's hardly any elevation changes to this racetrack. Totally different from what we saw at Road America and what we see at Watkins Glen. I compare this track here more to, say, Mexico City, where the Nationwide cars ran a couple years ago. Really fast straightaways, hard on brakes, nothing to lean on, no banking. That makes it kind of tough.
And I mean, Trevor, in the practice earlier today, so let's say he got 15 laps. I'm looking for the sheet to see the exact number of laps that he got, but That's it. 14 corners, 15 times to try and figure out how hard you can push, or, to try and think about it and change your technique as you go into one. And, yeah, that's not a lot.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. You can see right here, he's able to actually close the gap a little bit on Menard. And I consider Menard one of the better road racers. I know at Road America, he really looked like one of the cars to beat for a lot of the weekend.
Yeah. Got a little more on that, Vince?
Well, it's interesting because Trevor, after he ran that first stint, you talk about the few number of laps that he ran, he came in from the first stint. The next time out, he was 2 seconds quicker. The following run, he was another 2 seconds quicker. And he said finally that fourth run, it was down to tenths of a second. But he said we had to get the big jump out of the way early. They felt like they were able to do that. He spent a lot of time this week getting prepared on the simulator. Of course, it's a lot different than actually being in the car. But he felt like it helped him. But the fact that they were able to get 4 seconds off their lap, those first few runs today, he thought that was real important for him to get this weekend going.
Okay, that's a key thing right there, Vince. No doubt about that. When you can go out there and build confidence in yourself and that your car is going to handle in certain corners, and you come in and you make some comments to your crew chief about what you want to change, then you go out there and you keep picking up time. Obviously, that's real good. But when it tapers off and when that stops, that's when, hey, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the course. Now let's get the car better for me so I can go faster.
Ah, great point. So the weekend just getting started for these drivers and teams here at Montreal. Later on today at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, we will have qualifying for you on ESPN2 for the starting grid, that European-style group qualifying. It should be fun to watch later today. Then tomorrow, our race coverage starts at 2 p.m. with Countdown on ESPN2 as we get ready for the 200-mile race here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Then next weekend, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Atlanta. Always a fun race. That is Sunday night, starting at 7:30 Eastern. NASCAR Countdown precedes it at 7 Eastern next weekend. A gorgeous summer day here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal as the NASCAR Nationwide Series gets its final practice laps in before tomorrow's 200-miler. Carl Edwards is the defending winner of this race. Won 2 of the last 3 road course races in the Nationwide Series, and he's been pretty sporty in practice as well.
Oh, he has been solid. I mean, all day long. He's second quick right now in practice. Talked to him earlier. He was real happy with this car, but another driver talking about the brakes. He said, man, these things are getting red hot, and I'm real concerned about him.
Just watching Joe Nemechek in front of him there in that 97 car. Had a little bit of a wide round on that turn.
Rusty, when you know the brakes are going to be an issue like they are and we expect to be here, is there things that you can do as a driver to make time on the track and try to ease up on those brakes some?
Well, you're just going to have to back up your corners. I mean, you can't bomb down the corners as much as you usually do. And one thing you don't want to do, but one thing that does help, is a little bit earlier on your downshifts. I know it's hard on the motor, hard on the transmission. So I try to stay away from that. But probably, Andy, the easiest thing you could do is just don't drive so deep into the corners. And that's one thing you can do when you get in the race and you get a little bit of a cushion from you and the guy behind you. Then you can manage your pace once that happens in race conditions.
Well, when you don't have a little gap between you and the guy behind you, you wind up in a situation that worked in Carl's favor last year at the end of this race. Final corner of the race. Edwards all over Marcus Ambrose. Ambrose gets the last corner wrong under pressure from Edwards, and that was it. Marcus dominated that race, but Carl kept the heat on him at the end, and that one little mistake was the difference in deciding who won the race.
And he pushed him. He pushed him all the way through. You see the track still wet in it. A lot of pressure.
Edwards said that. Now, Robbie Gordon going to measure up how he stands here. Just slid in behind Carl on the track. Robbie in that 07 this weekend.
Well, you might find that 60 is pretty quick.
Only one way to
start on the. I'm just a couple of tenths quicker than Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie's been fantastic on his road courses. And yesterday, Andy, you were up there talking to Robbie, and I walked up and was talking to Robbie while you were there, and he told us that, this car, they've had this thing for a long, long time. They've just basically took it out, repainted it, dusted it off, and brought it back. Same car he had here 3 years ago, I guess it was, or maybe 4 years ago.
Well, he didn't stay behind him for long. One straightaway, and he bailed. So Robbie Gordon
found something to work on.
Yeah, 4th fastest right now. Here is the man who has everybody talking about him and all the self-imposed pressure you can imagine on his shoulders this weekend. Marcus Ambrose has led the most laps in this race the last 3 straight years, and 3 different sets of circumstances have kept him from victory lane. He's back. He says he's going to keep coming back until he wins this race. Mike, you got an update on that 47?
Well, yeah, we were observing, Alan, during the break how long they were spending up on the blocks trying to get this car set up for the second and final practice. And the reason being, they're really looking for a lot more forward bite. They didn't have that in that first practice. They changed springs. Also, they're looking for the right fuel mixture, and I'm sure Andy can elaborate on this. They changed out carburetors looking for what they thought would be the optimum fuel mixture. I know, Andy, you know a lot more about that than I do, so maybe you can explain.
Well, Mike, what they're trying to do is just get as much mileage and range out of this fuel tank as they can without oh, man. Ooh. A little loose there, but trying not to give up speed. I mean, a lot of teams will put jets in the carburetor that will hurt the power a little bit just to try to get the best mileage, and they're trying to find that balance right now. So they'll be checking that mileage pretty close in this final session.
Now, this session right here is going to be a lot different from the first one. They were on track this morning at 9 o'clock till 11, and the track is definitely heated up more. So it's a little slicker right it's going to be tomorrow. So they've got to get the car right under these conditions. Because, like I said, it is different from this morning.
Be curious to explore as the race goes on Sunday how that self-imposed pressure to win this race will affect Ambrose in the final laps, especially if he finds himself under pressure from someone else like Carl Edwards at the end of the day. 23 is Alex Kennedy. 33 is Max Papis driving the Kevin Harvick Incorporated Chevrolet this weekend here in Montreal.
Talked to Max Papis this morning. He was so excited to be driving Kevin Harvick's car. He said, this is the best road course car I've been in a long time. I feel like I could win this race. And I saw the car all apart. I said, Max, what are you doing? He said, well, we're changing rear springs.
So Papis going to head back to the attention of Ernie Cope and the crew. We have a new fastest lap in this session.
Yeah, it's the fastest lap of the weekend as well. That's the fastest lap I've seen anybody run yet.
Marcus Ambrose. Top of the now this is a part here that'll frustrate a fast car on this track, is finding ways around lap cars if the race goes long green flag periods. Now last year and the year before with the rain we didn't get a lot of long but
big challenge, because if you get too deep in the corners like this particular corner here, fenders off, and fenders are very important for downforce here, and that really hurts everything. It hurts how the car is going to brake, it hurts how it's going to handle throughout the race. And, you know, one of the main concerns I got for tomorrow's race, Alan, is what's going to happen when they all bear off down into turn one.
Yeah.
43.
Especially on restarts.
That is Boris said in the 09 that Ambrose just went past on that straightaway. Boris going to try and duck in behind and see what he can do. Brad Coleman drives the 18 this week. Remember, Brad Keselowski has a pretty healthy lead in the driver's points. That Owners' Championship is really tight, and this one of the few remaining races this season that Kyle Busch will not be behind the wheel of this 18.
Road America and on a road course, and he actually would have led the race for a little while. I think it might have been after some pit strategy, but he kind of got moved out of the way by Brad Keselowski.
Speaking of which, let's have a look. Coleman on a restart. Keselowski in that white car behind him, and they go that long down. Keselowski went for the lead, and it didn't go the way he wanted it to.
There's a lot of aggressive driving you see on these restarts, and yeah, Brad just kind of gets into the back of him a little bit, moves him out of the way, and costs him a lot of spots.
Now, there were some hard reactions on the part of the 18 team to Brad Keselowski after that. We know things have continued on between the 18 and 22, including that thing last Friday night at Bristol in the nationwide race. And there you see the owner standings now. And the 18 team, Joe Gibbs Racing, they want that Owners' Championship.
Well, I can tell you that also the 22 car, they want that trophy as well. I mean, they're both very focused on this part of the championship, and usually most years you don't think of the Owners' Championship being a big deal, but it is to these teams, especially, like you said, the 18 team, they've got multiple drivers in there, so for them to gauge the success of their season.
This particular track, whether it's going to be two, he knows how to bring the car home and run fast.
You think about what it's like for Brad Coleman to get in this car just a handful of times in a year, while Kyle Busch is in it most weeks and winning races most weeks. As Coleman moves to the inside of Tommy Dreese there, look at the numbers. Kyle's been in it 20 times. He's got 10 wins. Brad has only been in it 4 times. Road America race where he was leading. A couple of top 10 finishes, but he would certainly love to get certainly a solid top 5, if not a win, here at Montreal.
Boy, it's
on
tough
Sunday.
to be compared to somebody like Kyle Busch.
I'm telling you.
Man.
So Brad Coleman right now is 9th fastest overall in final practice for the Nationwide Series in Montreal. The Little League World Series continues Saturday afternoon on ABC. First at 1 Eastern, Chinese Taipei faces Japan in the International Championship game. Then at 4 Eastern, it's Texas taking on Hawaii in the U.S. Championship game. The Little League World Series presented by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes Reduced Sugar on ABC Saturday. For more, log on to ESPN.com. NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. As we ride on board with Justin Allgaier, guy who could really use a good run on a road course. He has had some tough luck in these road races this season.
Oh, he has. I mean, at Road America, one of the last ones we ran, he broke a rear track bar at that particular racetrack. I remember he was out right off the bat, out of competition. And then this track last year, while it was raining, got off course and had a big crash. So he's a lot better driver than what's been happening, that's for sure.
And he had some trouble at Watkins Glen as well. You mentioned this race last year, not running in wet conditions, a factor for Allgaier, and then he got out of control and collided with, of all people, Ron Fellows.
Yeah, it's a typical wheel hop situation. See, he gets in the corner really hot, the rear tires start bouncing off the ground, and the car will not slow down. So, you know, he didn't have any choice but to hit a lot of good cars right there.
And that was the damage to Fellows' machine, who was the defending winner of the race at that point. So Allgaier back to the garage to get a little tune-up there. Justin looking for some more speed in this practice. Mentioned Max Papis a little while ago, by the way, our in-race reporter for Sunday's race. And he's out getting a little more go. And we have one of the foot cameras on board the 33 machine this weekend.
Absolutely love these shots where you can see how the driver's working these pedals, because there's so much to this part of it at a road course. You're having to use a lot of these pedals and shifting and braking. This is a little different, though, Rusty. We see here how he's using these pedals.
Yeah, he is heel-toe shifting. I mean, I'm not going to call that old school. Boris said does it, runs real fast, and obviously Max does it, but some of the other drivers do not use that clutch at all. They just shift this thing. These new transmissions, you can do that. So a little surprised that Max is actually using his feet this much.
Yeah, you see how he's using the clutch, and he's keeping his foot on that clutch pedal all the time, and that would actually concern me a little bit, because keeping that release bearing in contact with a clutch all the way around the racetrack when you're doing that, I don't know if that'll cause him a problem or not, but he obviously knows how to go fast this way.
I just wonder if he realizes he's doing that. I mean, a lot of drivers, they always rest their left foot on something like a foot stop or something. It looks like he's just applying way too much pressure, like you said, to that clutch.
See, he's not using the clutch on the upshifts. But you see, puts his foot on the brake, kind of rolls his toe on that throttle to blip the throttle, and using the clutch to downshift.
And by the way, the big hoop over the top of that gas pedal is a safety lever in case the throttle were to stick. He's got that to lean against to try and pull it back up off the floor for some reason.
Yeah, you don't want to use that part.
Yeah, no, not at all. What I was chuckling about before is he got off course a little bit and watching his feet on the left, and there was like this hesitation jumping back and forth between the brake and the gas, and I looked at the picture on the right, and he was actually had two wheels in the dirt, and that's what it was. So Papis just put up the 5th fastest lap in that 33 car, and going to go back for a little more work.
Yeah, we can't tell him he's doing it wrong. He's just doing it different.
He's going fast, no doubt.
Yep. But like you said, if you were his crew chief, you would be concerned about what you saw there.
I just see that. It makes me worry a little bit about that, because you have free travel in that clutch pedal to keep that release bearing from touching the clutch release disc, and it'll spin that bearing.
Of course, the Formula One garages here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and the team's kind of having a little different setup than at the traditional oval NASCAR track. Here's Steve Wallace in the 66 car. He's been pretty solid in the morning practice session, the numbers he put up there.
Yeah, it was 11th quick this morning. Says he's got a pretty good car. He's pretty happy with it. Really enjoys this course. But like a lot of the drivers I've talked to, they said, man, I really don't know what to expect. It's been raining every year here.
Yeah.
And our setups are different. They've paved the racetrack in certain areas. And there's more grip out there, too.
He looked like he was looking for a little bit of it off that last corner.
You see all the black marks getting into this turn. You see even where the wheel hop, you can see how they're just little dashed lines where the black marks are.
How about how they're carrying that left front tire in some of these corners? And
there's some corners these guys are running second gear, and some of them, the very same corners, they come back the very next lap, and you try to get it down in first gear to get some more acceleration. And you want to keep your shifts to a minimum if you possibly can, to keep that transmission underneath you so you don't tear nothing up. But they say the gear ratios that are mandated for them here, that the second gears when they get down in a tight corner, really bogs the engine down and makes them want to jam it down in first gear. And some like it and some don't.
I'm a fan of not shifting any more than you have to, because just like you said, it's so hard on the equipment, especially first gear. When you go down to first gear, it's really, really hard on the transmission.
Look how low the front of those cars
He's
get.
doing a good job. I like that, Rusty. You guys are keeping that baby down there. Keeping it pretty flat. You go over these curbs, you can see them jump off the ground, but you don't want to see that front end lifting a whole lot off these corners.
Top 10 run in each of the last 2 road course races in the Nationwide Series for Steve. He finished 9th at both Road America and at Watkins Glen. And I think certainly they'd be pleased with a top 10 run here on Sunday. Now, here's the championship leader in the Nationwide Series. Brad Keselowski was very quick in the early part of this morning's practice. Wound up 5th fastest in the first session and is out on track now. 10th fastest after his first run and looking for more.
Yeah, he's not going to get a good fast lap with having to pass cars like this. He's looking for a clean racetrack for a full lap to lay down a fast one.
You know, it's interesting because with Brad's background being as an oval tracker, you don't think of him as a road course guy, but top 5 finishes in both the road course races this year. Got more on this 22, Mike?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned those top 5 finishes, Alan. I spoke with Brad in between practices, and I threw that stat at him. He kind of laughed. He said, those stats don't reflect how uncomfortable I really feel in these races. He said the whole practice, the first practice, the thing he tried to do most was get comfortable in that race car. I asked him how good the race car is. He said, it's better than I am. That just kind of tells you his mindset. Despite those top 5 finishes so far this year at Elkhart Lake and Watkins Glen, he still feels like there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to this style of racing.
It just proves, though, that he knows how to bring it home, like you said, Rusty, and he's a competitor. He knows how to get that finish. No matter what kind of track it's on, he knows how to do that, and that's what I really admire about him.
So you got to hand it to these Penske guys. They've done a great job building these Nationwide cars this year, not only for Justin Allgaier, Brad Keselowski. They built some beautiful cars. And talk about some of the new cars. The new car that we saw run in Michigan, they just actually blew the doors off the rest of the field, won that race.
Remember, Brad insisted on running the Nationwide Series this year to keep his confidence up in case the foray into Cup racing didn't go so well. He knew that the Penske Cup operation, that he was going to be in a big learning curve. Well, you look at the numbers, the results on the Cup side of that list, and he was right. He's got a lot of learning to do over there. On the right side, though, he has proven to himself and everybody else he can drive a race car.
Big difference between that Nationwide Series and the Cup Series. I mean, you look at those finishes. It's been a tough season for him in Cup.
Final practice ongoing here in Montreal. Montreal is the scene of a lot of things tonight on ESPN, including a big boxing match. Hank Lundy and Omri Lowther. That is at 9 Eastern time tonight from just across the river from where we sit now here in Montreal. Saturday night boxing special, ESPN tonight at 9 Eastern time. Somewhere in there is the arena where they're going to have that. The Metropolis, I believe, is the name of the arena, and that is tonight at 9 Eastern time. And on Ile Notre Dame at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a little interesting moment here going on for the championship leader, Brad Keselowski.
Well, I got a lot of smoke back here. Looks like they may even have, it might be a brake fire. Got something on fire there. Brake duct hose, maybe?
Yeah, what was that he just pulled down and dropped out of the car there?
I'm telling you what, we talked about brakes a lot.
That's got a fire going in there.
It's like the brake
What's going on down there, Mike?
Yeah, you guys are absolutely right. As they pulled in, Brad Keselowski had to climb from that race car as quickly as he possibly could. The fire and the flames had erupted into the cockpit of the race car, but what they pulled away from the brakes, brake ducting was actually on fire as well. It certainly seems like the heat of the brakes are what instigated that issue right there with the fire. You guys accurately assessed the situation for sure.
Yeah, they're going to have to address that to make sure that doesn't happen again.
So, Andy, let's talk about that just a second here. I mean, if he's only run a handful of laps, and he's got the brakes so hot that he's caught all the brake ducts on fire, I mean, this looks like this could be an issue. Mike, what's he saying?
Yeah, and Brad, what was it like inside that race car? He came in, some flames erupting into the cockpit.
Just, must have caught a brake duct hose on fire. The brakes are so hot here in Montreal. Things that normally aren't an issue are an issue, and it got so hot it caught all the brakes on fire and all the hosing. So it's all right. I saw the fire and just got out when I could. it wasn't too hot or the extinguishers would have gone off by themselves.
Were there any indications earlier in the day, maybe in the first practice, that the brake heat was a little bit higher than you wanted it to be?
Yeah, it's been hot all day long, so it's the same for everybody. We've just been doing longer runs, so I would expect the same things on Sunday.
The good news is, Alan, he was able to get out of the race car, avoiding injury, and now the only issue they've got to face is trying to figure out how to avoid that from happening on Sunday.
I was down in the garage area yesterday looking at a lot of the brake duct systems on these cars, and they're using a material for these brake ducts that doesn't have a wire in it to try to keep, if they rub the tire, that it doesn't cut a tire down. We've seen that happen quite a few times, but it's made out of a rubber material that would actually catch on fire. That might be the issue they have here. There are brake duct materials, hose materials, that are fireproof, so they're going to have to look at that.
And you mentioned before, this track is a high-stress track on all the equipment on the race car, and we're finding out.
They're finding the weak spot.
Yeah. By the way, we are under the red flag. Unrelated to this, a spring rubber fell out of one of the cars as one was laying in the middle of turn 10. That big, slow right-hand hairpin. So that is why the red flag is out while they go and retrieve that. Final practice resumes at Montreal in a minute. Beautiful day in Montreal. Just gorgeous weather this weekend in contrast to the last couple of years, as the Canadian fans, as always, have turned out to see the NASCAR Nationwide Series race and to cheer on 7 of their own who hope to be in the field. A couple of these guys have to qualify on time, but Carpentier from nearby Joliet, Quebec will be one of the favorites. Certainly Jacques Villeneuve and Ron Fellows, of course, former winner of this race a couple of years ago in 2008.
And Andrew Ranger had a good finish here last year, had a good run actually last year, so look for him to be a factor.
00 is Carpentier, a Michael Waltrip Racing Toyota. Second year in a row he has driven here for them. He's finished second in this race twice, 2007, 2008.
Yeah, I expect good things out of him. He's a good, smooth driver, loves his course. Every time we see him in these road races in NASCAR, he's always doing a really good job. And this car looks real good on the racetrack. The front end's nice and low, looks real smooth, doesn't look busy, nothing's jumping around. Hasn't been off course that I know of. Doing a great job.
Andy, you mentioned Andrew Ranger. He has really had a standout season on the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series, North of the Border Series, one of the NASCAR Touring Series. And look at the numbers. He's 11 for 41. Wow. That's pretty stout, and not having the best of times at this very moment, though, is he, Vince?
That's for sure, and this was a team that had high expectations after finishing third here a year ago. Has won a couple of times in the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series this year, two-time series champion there, but right now the hood's up. What's the problem, Andrew?
Actually, for the last session, we broke the engine. It's not really fun. I think the Dodge 27 was pretty fast today. We're on the top 10 every session, and it's too bad the engine broke.
How about your expectations when you come, you're a Quebec native, to come back to this facility in a NASCAR Nationwide Series event, and especially after finishing so well a year ago?
Yeah, exactly. We did there pretty well last year. We finished third. It's too bad, I think, in front of my crowd, in front of my family, friends, and there we go. We broke the engine, but it's better happen today than tomorrow, and we probably start in the back for the race, but, you know, it's a long race. A lot of things can happen.
Tough break for Andrew Ranger in this Baker Curb Group, Alan.
Yeah, he will have to start in the back because of the engine change, but he'll be fun to watch coming up through.
He's aggressive. There is no doubt about that. We watched him last year and commented how hard he drove. He picked up a lot of positions.
Speaking of Canadian Tire, sponsoring the Junior Motorsports 88 car, and Ron Fellows this weekend here at Montreal. Former winner of this race. Won it in the rain a couple of years ago.
A little different paint scheme right there for the 88 car. Pretty, though.
Talk about a smooth driver. Fellows, I mean, I love watching him race because the car doesn't look like it's going fast, but he always is, always stays on course, and he really gets the job done. Did an incredible job at Road America. Looked good over there.
Shannon, don't know if they've made an attempt at a qualifying run yet, but Fellows showing down in 16th on the board at the moment.
Well, Rusty says he always looks fast on the racetrack, but they're not really fast so far on practice today. In fact, Pops told me that is what they're looking for. They're just looking for speed. The handling is there, and the car feels great underneath Ron, but it's just not fast. But they're not too concerned. This is the same car that they had at Watkins Glen earlier this year, and they had a great finish there. And at Elkhart Lake, the same thing, best finish of second, same car. And so Pops told me that they didn't have the fastest car in practice there, but they did have the results at the end of the day.
Yeah, I noticed that too with this car and Ron Fellows. They weren't the fastest car. They did make a lot of noise, but Ron found a way to get that car to the front. It must have been very comfortable for him because as the race wore on, the better he just got better and better.
He's using it all up right there, right? A couple wheels off the pavement. He'd hopped the curb the corner before.
Yeah, it's not like he's not looking for speed.
Yeah.
He's trying to go fast.
Ron Fellows, of course, no stranger to victory lane in NASCAR Nationwide Series road course races, particularly at Watkins Glen. 17 starts, 4 wins. That's a winning percentage anybody would take, even Rusty Wallace.
I would take that. Heck yeah.
All right, we were talking about Brad Coleman earlier. Mike, they done for the day?
They are done for the day. I would say that's a pretty good sign that you're happy with your race car. How would you assess the situation right now?
Yeah, we're very happy with it. Part of it's we're happy with it, and part of it's we want to save it and not catch anything on fire using it too much. Great car. I love coming to Montreal. It's just such a fun city, such a fun racetrack, and to have Safeway on the car is cool. But yeah, we're really confident we're going to be in either the first or second group in qualifying, which is where you want to be. It's all about going out there and getting a good qualifying position so you can try to stay out of the mayhem.
Speaking of mayhem, it looked like you were close to getting into some there toward the end of that practice. Got off course a little bit. What happened?
Yeah, I was passing someone on the inside going into hairpin. I think it was the 82, and they didn't see me. I mean, I was right on their door, and they didn't see me. They came down, and I went through the grass to avoid them, and hey, we didn't touch anything, no harm, no foul, but you got to be watching a little better than that.
The good news is, Alan, this car is clean and fast, no damage whatsoever.
Brad mentioned in qualifying, he will be in the 7th of 8 groups in qualifying later today. The times that the teams turned in practice in the first 2-hour session this morning used to group the cars for their time trial runs, slowest to fastest. And so Brad will be in the second to last group. They'll get 7 minutes on the clock as a group and get a chance to post their fastest lap.
And that's a great way to do it because it does build drama to the end of the session, and don't know who's going to be on the pole till the last part of the qualifying, so it'll be exciting.
Here's Tony Raines, finished 6th in this race a year ago. Not known as a road course specialist, certainly. Tony, an oval track guy, but got a nice top 10 run here a year ago under what were very difficult conditions.
I want you guys to take a look how narrow this course is. I mean, when you're out there driving and you got 43 guys around you, this course is very, very narrow. And then it kind of fans out a little bit. You exit turn 11 right here, and you set up for that long straightaway where you're running close to 180 miles per hour. That's where you feel good. That's where you feel like you had a little room. But then it funnels all back down to what he's getting ready to approach now, which is turn 13, hard under brakes. And, man, if you miss it, if you start wheel hopping, you end up landing in the pit area here.
Catching a little too much curve
on that one.
On that right-hander, and that's what can really cost you.
That wall off that last corner has come to be known as the Champions Wall here because of all the Formula One champions that have hit it over the years trying to carry speed off the last turn. Whoop, wait a minute. Don't bounce fenders. Yeah, that's the wall I'm talking about, the Champions Wall. That was Alex Kennedy who got together alongside somebody else trying to go through that corner, and it didn't work out. Marcus Ambrose, fastest in final practice here at Montreal. Reminder that later on today, it's NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying from here in Montreal, 5 Eastern on ESPN2. Our race coverage is tomorrow at 2 Eastern on ESPN2. We start with NASCAR Countdown. Then next weekend, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series back in action. Sunday night, Atlanta Motor Speedway, 7:30 on ESPN. We begin with NASCAR Countdown at 7 Eastern. I want to tell you what, maybe I'm a little spoiled, but that water in that St. Lawrence River next to this racetrack would be a little too cold for me not to have a wetsuit on.
Yeah, she's surfing, actually.
Yeah.
It's a surfboard down in these rapid part of the river. It's really kind of cool.
It is. Very neat. Beautiful city, beautiful setting. The city, the St. Lawrence River as the backdrop to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where the yellow flag has just come out on this practice session for a car stopped on course. Is that the 61 car? I believe it is. And that is one of the regulars of the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series, Pierre Bourque, who is from Ottawa, Canada, looking to make his first Nationwide Series start and is without power for some reason, and so they'll go give him an assistance back to the garage. Now, last we saw the Nationwide Series and the Sprint Cup Series on a road course was Watkins Glen earlier in the month of August. Boris said driving the Red Bull 83, and Tony Stewart got a little tussle over some real estate that Boris came out on the worst end of.
Good.
Boris is back. And third fastest in this practice here at Montreal today, Shannon.
Pretty great day for Boris said here at Montreal. He's also watching the video, the highlights from Watkins Glen. Pretty exciting race for you, pretty exciting finish. How is this weekend's race maybe going to compare to what we saw in Watkins Glen?
Well, I hope better than that, because that was a bad reminder. I mean, that was really a case of not getting much respect. And at Montreal, it's such a tough race course. Even for Formula One cars, they lose brakes. Plus, it's a street course, so there's no runoff. So there's got to be a lot of give and take with your competitors here. So hopefully we won't see much of that.
Narrow racetrack, brakes are so important. How do you manage your brakes at this racetrack? I mean, I know you have so much experience racing these types of cars on this types of track.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And number one, I have the best brakes in the business. You know, we have performance friction brakes. I have them on all my street cars at home. I think that that's going to give me an edge. And you really just got to manage it. You got to know when they start to fade that you need to back off them for a little while, let them cool down, because we'll see rotor temperatures of 13 to 1500 degrees. So that's pretty hot.
A little spicy down here at Montreal. Grand Prix race for Boris said he's actually starting on the pole later today, and then he will qualify this 09 car. Mike?
And Shannon, as you heard Boris talk about the rotor temperatures, well, obviously that was an issue for Brad Keselowski and the 22 team. Just an update on the brake fire situation they encountered not too long ago. I spoke with crew chief Paul Wolf, and what they've asserted here was they believe it was a tie wrap that broke, allowing the ducting to contact the rotor itself, catching fire. Now, Andy, as you mentioned, there are fire-retardant brake ducting hoses. Believe it or not, this was one of them. Still, it caught fire. That tells you just how hot the temperatures were there on the brake rotors of the 22.
Well, we might call it fire-resistant. That was not fireproof. That thing was on fire.
Yeah. Speaking of temperatures, we talked about brake rotor temperatures. Here's the track temperature in the air. Look at the air temperature, first of all. It's just beautiful here. Track temperature's taking a big jump.
Well, you can see that 106 degrees. That's going to be more like what we're going to see tomorrow. Temperatures are supposed to be actually a little warmer tomorrow than they are today, and I think it's going to test these drivers and cars.
I wonder what the water temperature is out there in the St. Lawrence. If you wanted to jump in there and do that surfing. No. I'll bet it's not 70. Yeah, that's more like it with the wetsuit.
Yeah, he's not even tough, though.
Yeah, you get out there and try that. See how tough you are. Red flag, they're checking for fluid on the track at Montreal. Remind you that the Little League World Series continues Saturday afternoon on ABC. First at 1 Eastern, Chinese Taipei faces Japan in the International Championship game. Then at 4 Eastern, it's Texas and Hawaii in the U.S. Championship game. The Little League World Series, presented by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes Reduced Sugar on ABC Saturday. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. We are at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, where the racetrack is named for one of Canada's most famous racing sons. The Villeneuve name being carried on this weekend by his son Jacques Villeneuve, who is here this weekend trying to score a win at the track named for his famous father. Villeneuve driving this 32 car for Braun Racing. He has been fast in practice. He is finding the limit on this car, and he is second quick so far and is on the track for another go in this 32 machine.
That was a cool picture we just saw. I think I'd like to have that on the wall of my house.
Isn't it cool? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sharp. The car's straight in the air.
And imagine how great it must be for him to be racing at this track. I know he said when he gets in the car and straps on, he's all focused in on winning, but this racetrack carries the family name. Imagine if there was a Wallace Speedway somewhere and what it would mean, track named after your dad, Russ, what it would mean to you to have won there, you know?
I'd always want to win there. Plus, I'd want to drive real hard every time I came to that racetrack. But that's a little bit of a problem for Villeneuve this weekend because he's going to have to drive hard to win. But going back to these brakes are not holding up too good for him to do that.
You can see the difference in style between Max Papis and Jacques Villeneuve here. See Villeneuve not even anywhere near the clutch with his left foot. He just keeps it right by the brake, doing the upshift and the downshift without a clutch.
He's not doing what they call heel-toe shifting like Boris said does, and we saw Max Papis do that. But most of the rest of the drivers, Andy, do exactly what Jacques is doing right here. This particular maneuver, use the brake, use the gas, and that's it.
Yeah, these transmissions are really refined pieces of equipment that can withstand that, the shifts up and down without a clutch. You can see he matches the RPM a little bit on the downshift. He pops that throttle just a little bit as he makes that downshift. Talked to Trent Owens. He said they were going to, in this final part of this last practice, they were going to try to put in their race brakes and get them broken in and try to start out with fresh stuff to qualify with tomorrow. So they may be out there doing that now, just burning in this set of brakes.
Man, he is on the edge, isn't he?
Oh, I'm telling you.
He is looking for speed. How about it, Vince?
Andy, that's exactly what they have done. They have put in the race brakes, and that is what Villeneuve is running right now at this point. They feel like they're very happy with the race cars, would indicate by the timesheet. They were first, fastest in that initial practice today, currently second on the speed chart, as you noted. So they're happy with the handling of the car. They put in the race brake system here, and Villeneuve's going to go out a couple of laps and bring it back in. They feel like they have accomplished what they set out to accomplish here so far today.
And the reason they'll do this is because they don't want to go out there and try to qualify on brand new parts and pieces, so because they can't get the most out of it. You want to go out there and really burnish in these brake pads on the rotor so when they qualify they can get the most out of them.
Now, just 2 cars behind Villeneuve on the racetrack is Max Papis, who we also have the foot cam in. Let's compare some styles.
Quite a bit different there, you see. I mean, like I said, Villeneuve just on those 2 pedals, but Max Papis, he's using all 3.
So he takes his right foot and rolls it over on the throttle to bring the RPM of the engine up to match his downshifts. That's one technique. Like I said earlier, that's called heel and toe downshifting. Now, Jacques Villeneuve, the opposite. He's doing a kind of new school, what most of the drivers are using, just at 2 feet, like Andy said.
Tried to go around Paulie Haraka in that 87 car. Villeneuve did on the outside of turn number 2, and that didn't work out so well for him.
And while we're watching this, Max Papis has gone to the top of the sheet. Fastest time so far.
Fellows through, and here comes Papis. It's interesting to me now mechanically, is there any disadvantage, let alone that Max is leaning on the clutch pedal a little bit like you talked about earlier? Is there any disadvantage to Villeneuve not using the clutch pedal at all?
Actually, I think it's an advantage just from a speed standpoint. I mean, he can do those downshifts. He can get to the brakes a little quicker. It doesn't have that lag time of getting off the throttle and onto the brakes, so he can get, just maybe stay on the gas just a tick longer before he gets to the corner.
But mechanically, he's not straining the car anymore by doing it that way.
No. I would say actually either way is, you might think that using the clutch would be easier maybe on the transmission. There again, if you look at Villeneuve, he's probably easier on the clutch itself because he's not using it.
One thing I noticed we're looking at here is you look at Max Papis' throttle. He's got the return portion above his foot. In case the throttle sticks, he can pull it back up. Now, Jacques doesn't have that. And that might be just an error from the team because I thought that was pretty well mandatory that they need to have that in case that throttle sticks. But, going back to you guys' question about what is better, I just like to do less of everything. So if I'm moving 3 pedals, I'd rather move 2 and simplify everything.
Well, just to look at the top of the board, the 32 and the 33 are the top 2 cars on the sheet. So I'd say they both work pretty good.
A little loose there, trying to get on the gas off the corner for Papis. Started second here in 2007 and 2008. His best finish is 3rd in 2007 for Papis in this 33. Vince, what are they saying?
Well, they felt like it was turning a little bit too strong, and he said that he wanted the front end to be good, but he didn't want to lose speed, and he felt like maybe that was the case in that previous run. They felt like they were safe on the camber. Temperatures were good. They were just working on the handling, and I guess they've fixed a little something because he's gone up to the top of the speed chart. You see the footwork. This is the first time that Max Papis has worked with Kevin Harvick, Inc. It's been a good year for KHI in the Nationwide Series. Working with Ernie Cope, it's a nice combination so far for Ernie and Max Papis in the 33.
We just talked to NASCAR about the throttle return on the 32. They said it's mandatory that you got to have that, and I just got to believe it might not be in our camera shot. I just think it might have been an oversight, too, that they forgot to put it on there.
32 car has gone back to the garage. Ron Fellows has stopped on the track, a report that we're getting. Yeah, there he is.
I don't know what that is. He could have maybe tried to see how much fuel he could get out of the tank and ran it out.
And they found out how much. Not as much as they thought. So red flag is out in final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Max Papis has the new fastest lap.
I don't really really think about the fact that the track is named after my father. The memories I have, the first one I have is when my dad won his first F1 race, which was in '78, and it was freezing cold, so after on the podium he was wearing a winter coat. Winning in Montreal would be great, but also winning in NASCAR, because it is completely different than anything I've done before.
The first Canadian to winning the Indianapolis 500.
In '97, when I won the championship, I crashed on the second lap, so that was frustrating. There was a wall painted, "Welcome to Quebec," and that's exactly where I crashed. Great to race in the hometown. The fans here just love racing, whatever form it is in.
And what a fascinating story this racetrack is. The Canadian Grand Prix moved here from other places in 1978, and Gilles Villeneuve won that very first race held on this track, the one that Jack was referring to in the piece there. The track named for him after his death in 1982. Of course, this piece of land we're sitting on, a man-made island that was made from the dirt where they dug out to build the metro system, the subways in Montreal. Originally, they hosted the 1967 World's Fair here, the Biosphere, just barely visible on part of the screen. And, of course, the race has been here since 1978, the Formula One race. NASCAR came here 2007. There's the Biosphere. The World's Fair, 1967, was what I remember first coming here for. And twice a year, they're allowed to have races on what most of the year is a city park filled with people walking and bicycling and rollerblading, and twice a year it becomes a racetrack. And Circuit Gilles Villeneuve hosting the NASCAR Nationwide Series this weekend, and the final practice under the red flag while Ron Fellows' car pushed back to the garage. By the way, they did run it out of gas.
Hey guys, here we come. Pit road.
Let's go downstairs.
Well, he certainly has been one of the fastest this weekend, fastest in that first practice session, currently P2 on the chart. And Jacques, it seems as though you're all good, but is there something that you'd like to see a little bit better, or is it as good as you need it?
The car is good. We made some setup changes from this morning and for the race trim, and it seemed to be better. So we'll qualify with the race trim, and hopefully that will be quick enough for qualifying. But we have a very strong car here. The brakes are working fine, and they seem to survive, so we're very happy.
You mentioned the brakes, and that's a hot topic of conversation up and down the paddock area here. How do you manage the brakes? How do you know during the course of the race whether you're being too hard on them or whether you're managing appropriately?
You know, you have to brake as hard as you can, obviously, but there gets a point where they start overheating and the brakes just slide, so the car doesn't slow down anymore, and you just have to judge when you reach that point. The last year and in Elkhart Lake as well with my Dollar General car, we had that problem when after 2 or 3 laps, I would just run out of brakes, and they would just start sliding. I had to pump them a lot to make the pedals stiff again. We made some changes here, and it seems to be working fine, so we're very excited.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that during the race for sure. Thanks, Jacques. Alan?
Certainly look forward to seeing how this 32 fares, as we mentioned. Keeping brakes on the thing. He's been fast in the first 2 road course races this year, but keeping brakes on it's been the big issue, and this racetrack certainly will challenge those brakes on Sunday. Brad Keselowski back on track after the brake duct fire we saw earlier on this car. A little bit earlier in practice.
You can see that duct right there in the side window that's connected to a brake duct hose that caught on fire under the car.
Yeah, a real scary situation. I mean, all those fumes inside the car that he's breathing right now, he wants to get out of there pretty quick so it doesn't inhale all that stuff. But probably worse than that is just why did everything get so hot and why did it catch on fire? I'm sure they're going back looking at all that.
And remember, the report we got from Mike Massaro was that they felt like a tie wrap that was holding the brake duct in a certain position broke, and the duct got over against the brake rotor in the car, and that's what caught the hosing on fire. Haven't talked about Colin Brown much. 16, young man with a lot of road racing in his background, out here in the Roush Fenway 3M car. And so far, 10th fastest in this practice.
Really good road racer, seems to always get the job done no matter where we go on the road courses especially. That's his specialty. He really looks forward to coming to this track because he knows he can win here.
Yeah, but one thing, I watched this car in the first practice session. It's carrying that left front tire in those left-hand turns.
A lot of guys really soften up the rear springs trying to get forward bite so you don't spin the rear tires. And when you do that, Andy, it just dips the right rear down or dips the left rear down. And when that happens, the front end comes off the ground. And so they'll go back and try to put his rear sway bar on it or stiffen up the rear spring, something to give it a better platform. I was watching his teammate, Carl Edwards. I didn't see that problem with that particular car. But the other Roush cars, I'm starting to see that problem.
That's a great explanation of what causes that. Jason Leffler, guy you don't think of as a road courser, right? Jason Leffler is 6th fastest in this practice in this 38 car.
Well, you don't. I mean, you get so many of these top guys that we see that are kind of road racing specialists, and you just don't expect to see Jason Leffler in that group, but here he is.
Shannon, what are they saying about this 38 car?
Well, don't be surprised if he jumps up a little bit on the speed chart because he is out on his qualifying run right now. They've got some stickers on the car full of fuel, and he's out there trying to put down a fast lap. In the first practice earlier today, Jason Leffler was complaining that his brakes were a little inconsistent. According to the team, they had brought a used pair of brakes for the first practice, but once they replaced them with the brand new set, the car got very good for Jason. He has really been fast all day, and guys, he's coming off that great finish last week at Bristol Motor Speedway. This team really looking to get back on track, a race he was looking forward to all week.
Told us a couple days ago, he said, he drove the 10 car, I believe it was, at Bristol, a different number, and had a great finish. He said, I don't know what it is. I'm starting to get spooked off a little bit about this number. Seems like lately when I drive the 38 car, I crash or I blow a motor. I'm starting to think this number's jinxed. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious. You get a team like Braun Racing, and they bring a guy like Villeneuve in to work with them. And how much that helps their technical knowledge of road course racing overall to help a guy like Jason Leffler make his car better. You mentioned that 10 and 38 jinx thing? How about that?
He's got 3 top 5s in the 10 car. He drives that 38 most of the time.
He said that 38's jinxed. I don't know if I like driving that number. I like that 10 car, and I love this team. That number is something I don't know about.
That's fun.
Decals are cheap. We can fix that.
That's a good point.
Back to my question. What do you think? Bringing in a guy like Villeneuve help this team develop its road racing package?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You bring somebody like that in, and what he's doing is he's exposing any issues you have. He moved up right there. Leffler did to the 4th spot. So, yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, you find out what you can do to your cars to make them faster, and it also gives the other drivers, like Jason Leffler, a benchmark to shoot for. He knows the cars are capable of this, so he's going to go out there and make sure he can get there.
That's a good point, because he's known, hey, I got the same car, the same engine, comes out of the same shop, and this guy only runs a half full of times, is outrunning me. What's going on? And he can really learn from that.
That's 2 of the top 4 times for this racing team, with Villeneuve 2nd and Leffler 4th. So the bar raised inside that team's shop, that's for sure. Mentioned earlier, a number of Canadian drivers in the field. This is J.R. Fitzpatrick in the Junior Motorsports 7 car. 22-year-old from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. Leads the Canadian Tire Series of NASCAR entering this weekend. They're also on the card here this weekend, by the way. Got a race to run on Sunday morning before the Nationwide Series race. We've seen Fitzpatrick in the other road course races this season, driving this 7 car.
You know, that's one thing I would want to do if I came to this course. If I had an opportunity to run another race in any type of car, I'd want to do that just to try to get my rhythm going, get my feeling about this the track back in check. And so I think that's going to be an advantage with him running that other race.
It's funny because Fitzpatrick is running all of the road course races in the Nationwide Series, and he says, but I'm not a road course guy. But that's what he's getting a chance to do.
Yeah, here, got a car spun into the wall here.
Yep. That is Bork in the 61, another one of the Canadian Tire Series drivers, and that is not good.
Yeah, just shot right before that. We saw Ron Fellows back out there. Guess he figured out the gas was free.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get him another tank full. Yeah, it's really hammered that one.
That is over in turn number 7, the 6-7 complex. And so far we're still under green. So he has driven away, and the caution or red flag has not been put out on this practice. So let's pick back up on Ron Fellows. Just a minute.
Yeah, they kind of figured out what their range was and how much fuel. What they want to do is run that thing completely out of gas, fill it back up, and see exactly how much it took. That tells them just how much they can pull out of the tank, and then that's how much they can, how they can figure out how many laps they can go based on their fuel mileage.
Andy, on an oval track, those cells can basically pull every drop of fuel out of a gas tank on an oval track, but on a road course, can they pull every bit of fuel out of that tank with the system they use?
You can come pretty close, Rusty. They've got some really nice systems in there that will contain that fuel inside some trap doors and really make it where they can get all the fuel out of it. There's probably only, it's less than probably a half a gallon of unusable fuel left.
And strategy and track position and when you make your pit stops and when the caution flags fall and all that, going to be another huge story on Sunday, like it always is in these road course races, and like it's become in every race, really.
Yeah, road courses are especially difficult when you've got that much time that it takes to go around the track. It opens up so many other strategies that it can really tax a crew chief on top of the box.
Brendan Gaughan had a great run out at Road America a couple of road course races ago. What are those tick marks on the front of the car?
Those are Toyota Racing Development films all the corners, take pictures. And these are different runs, actually. They'll actually put different tape marks on the car designating what run that was when they took that photograph of the car on the racetrack. I asked that question the other day. I said, what's all these marks? And it's a way to indicate what run they were in.
Yeah, because they'll go back and look at their data and say, okay, this is what we did for this run, and this is what it looked like.
Red and black flags out, and so the last run, the sixth one, in this case for the 62 car, is over. And final practice wrapping up with Max Papis on top of the charts as we look at the top 10 laps in the practice session. Papis, Villeneuve, Ambrose, gee, no surprise, top 3 spots here in Montreal. More in just a minute. Now that final practice is over for the NASCAR Nationwide Series, don't forget they'll be qualifying at 5 Eastern today. Live coverage here on ESPN2. Then tomorrow, our coverage of the race from Montreal, 2 Eastern, ESPN2, starting with NASCAR Countdown. Sprint Cup Series off this weekend. They're in action next Sunday night at Atlanta, 7:30 ESPN. We start with NASCAR Countdown at 7 Eastern time. So the practice done, Max Papis winds up on top of the speed chart, which was the end of a steady progression for him, Andy.
Yeah, you can see here, this is nice practice. So you start out, and they were fast the whole time, but you can see they just kept getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and by the end they were at the top. And Vince, you're with Max Papis.
Well, it's funny. This is the first time that Max has worked with KHI and crew chief Ernie Cope, and he just looked at the speed chart, kind of almost looked surprised that you were on top. And I know you can't be surprised. This car's been really good, hasn't it?
I need to say that, this rain car is just very good. We've been working very methodically, one corner at a time, one lap at a time to maximize what Kevin and Delana gave me. And so far, I wasn't really surprised, but it's a nice surprise to go and see that you do what you can do and you're up there on the top of the chart. But nobody get paid to win happy hour. It's a qualifying race, that's what it counts, and we're really focusing. We take one corner at a time, one lap at a time, but it's really good to work with this group of people, very motivated, very focused, and Ernie has been giving me a great car, so it's a pleasure to drive it.
So far so good, but still plenty of work to be done, Alan.
We'll see if Papis can keep that #1 spot in qualifying later today, or if it'll be Marcus Ambrose, who won the Watkins Glen Nationwide Series race last time out on a road course and comes here this weekend determined to get that trophy this weekend after being disappointed the last 3 years. Michael, how are they feeling?
I would imagine he's feeling pretty good. He was at the top of the speed chart most of happy hour, ended up 3rd. But you're the guy who's going to tell us how good the car is. How satisfied are you?
Well, I'm not sure. This is the same car we won with at Watkins Glen. I'm starting to think maybe it wasn't a great idea because we're actually down in the racetrack too much here on the heavy braking. So we're just trying to get a balance on it. A bit confused about braking too. The brake system that I normally had that works well here just doesn't seem to be stopping well enough for us either. So we've got some work to do, but I feel like we're in a good position for qualifying. If we can qualify in the first couple of rows, I'm sure we're going to have a great chance to win.
He certainly will be fun to watch, Alan. Obviously one of the favorites here this weekend.
All right, Mike, thanks. Ambrose 3rd fastest in final practice. We'll come back and look ahead to qualifying in just a minute from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in beautiful Montreal. Summer on the St. Lawrence. How'd you like to be on this boat doing this?
Man, that looks like fun. Check it out.
Isn't that cool? NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice is over at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Drivers hoping not to be spinning around like that on the racetrack a little bit later on. And qualifying coming up a few hours from now, 5 Eastern time on this 14-turn Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And should be quite a challenge. For the drivers, they will be lined up for qualifying in reverse order of the times they set in first practice today. So in the group qualifying session used, there'll be 6 groups of 6, 2 groups of 5. The fast cars will go last 7 minutes per session to do what you can.
Yeah, that was kind of that 7-minute thing. You don't know whether you're going to be fastest on your first lap or your second lap. Kind of choose how much tape you can run on the car.
It's fun to watch because the drama builds throughout qualifying. They keep getting faster and faster. And every now and then, in one of those first sessions, somebody runs pretty quick because they had a problem in their first practice session, didn't get a quick time. We'll get a surprise.
So we'll see how it all plays out. Track position, of course, for the start of these road course races, ever so important. And that'll be determined this afternoon at 5 Eastern time. Fine. Here at Montreal on ESPN2. Hope you join us for that. And then our race coverage again tomorrow at 2 Eastern, also on ESPN2 from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. In Montreal, there is no more beautiful setting for a racetrack than this one. It's beautiful weather. It's going to be a great race. We hope you'll be with us. The crowd is going to be huge. The action will be fun. And we'll be up with qualifying at 5 Eastern this afternoon. The WNBA playoffs are coming up next. We'll see you later today.